Hola borregos, bienvenidos a The Tech Scoop. El día de hoy tenemos al doctor Noel Capon con nosotros. Él va a estar dando una charla acerca de negocios para la Escuela de Negocios y vamos a aprovechar que está aquí con nosotros para tener una plática con él, hacerle unas pequeñas preguntas y conocer un poco más acerca de su trayectoria, que es bastante. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I read your CV and I spotted quite a little things. I saw you have an MBA in Harvard and a PhD in Columbia. I would like to ask, in what approaches were those titles made?
What approaches? Well, the Harvard program, it was the second year of an MBA program because I'd been to a business school in England for one year and then transferred to Harvard. And the Harvard system is very much by case study. There is really no lecture discussion system. Everything is by cases. And each day you have 3 cases to prepare for the next day, and you do that week after week after week. And that was for the MBA program. But at that time, I had decided that I wanted to move into academia and become a professor. So when I graduated with the MBA from Harvard, I then went to Columbia to join the PhD program, and then spent 4 years at Columbia earning my PhD in marketing.
Okay. So, well, as you mentioned, your PhD is in marketing. Why marketing? What was that thing that made you decide?
Well, that's very interesting because in my previous life, before I went to Harvard, I was actually a chemist. I was actually a scientist working at University College London, which was one of the major chemistry departments in Britain at the time, and actually earned a PhD in chemistry, but then decided I really didn't want to be a laboratory chemist. So I went to work for a chemical company, but in a marketing role. And so I spent 2 or 3 years in that marketing role, and then realized that one could learn more about marketing, or we could learn, of course we could learn by doing it, but there must be courses and so forth in marketing. So then I sort of switched to marketing. What I found about marketing was this was just so very interesting. It sort of ultimately drives the economy today, and some of many of the key decisions that companies make are marketing decisions. That's essentially the reason I
So now that you mentioned that you were a scientist before, what difference do you spot in the industries now in the side of business and in the part of science?
Well, certainly in the science side, I worked for a chemical company. The kind of company at the time was ICI, Imperial Chemical Industries. It was a major British company. Does not exist anymore. As a matter of fact, so I was sort of all my work was focused on that industry, and in particular in synthetic fibers, nylon and polyester. And this is a number of years ago, so I became sort of somewhat of an expert in those areas. But now that in marketing, marketing covers the entire business landscape. So it's not just the chemical industry; it's the auto industry and any other industry. So I think marketing is which I'm going to talk a bit later today, is sort of the heart of the business operation, no matter what industry it is, or no matter what country it's in, whether it's in Mexico, the United States, or Britain. The sort of set of principles and ideas are very broad and very applicable across industries.
Well, and now I'd like to ask, we know that marketing has been changing in the past years, but is the essence still there? What's going to be the future of marketing?
That's a very good point. There's no question that the actual practice of marketing is going to change. Certainly with respect to the internet, just as one very simple example, if you go back 10 years or so, the major corporations would have done their advertising on TV, and now increasingly they're shifting to the internet. So the operation all part of marketing, that's going to change and vary. But there are a set of fundamental principles, fundamental imperatives that I talk about, which are going to stay the same. For instance, you have to figure out which markets you're going to play in. That's a key job. Once you figured out those markets, as a marketer, you then have to segment those markets. Then you have to decide which segments you're going to address, and you have to deliver value to those segments. So all of those things stay the same. They were the same 30 years ago, and they'll be the same 30 years into the future. But in terms of the way marketing operates, it's going to be very different. So I just gave you one example about advertising, for example. Let's take another example about where consumers buy their goods. Historically, and still to a very large extent, still in Mexico, less so in the United States, people go to the store. So that my wife and I, just as an example, we would go once a week to the store to buy groceries for the next week. We scarcely ever go to the store. We scarcely ever go to a grocery store today, so we buy everything on Amazon. And so there's this shift then in terms of retail, from in-place retail stores and real estate to virtual stores on the internet. So that's another change. So there are going to be a number of those sorts of changes that we're in the process of seeing, but I think the fundamentals are basically going to stay, not going to change too much.
Do you think that it is more necessary to also have some knowledge in management for the marketers nowadays that in the past? Is it really important to have that vision?
Well, certainly marketing. Marketing is a big internal. We tend to think of marketing as external. Marketing is out there in the environment, worried about customers, competitors, what the market is doing, etc. And that's unbelievably important, no question. But it's also a very important internal part of marketing, because at the end of the day, what marketing essentially does is to make promises to customers. You buy this product from us, you will get this value. That's basically the deal that marketing makes with the customer. But the company has to then deliver on that promise. So marketing has a very big internal role to play, working with R&D, working with production, working with customer service and so forth, to make sure that the promises that marketing offers really are delivered by the firm.
Okay, so, well, I saw that some of your current researches involve management and marketing decisions.
Sure.
What would you try to find?
Tell you about some of the work that I've been doing recently. That is in the area. It's more B2B, business to business, than it is B2C. But it's really critically important, because B2B, where the customer is another organization, there's also in retail as well, where the customers may well be the supermarkets, the Walmarts, and those sorts of companies. One of the things that's been going on for a number of years now is something called the 80-20 rule, or also called the Pareto distribution. And the way that works out is that 80%, for many companies, especially in B2B, 80% of their revenues come from 20% of the customers. So that, if that's the case for you as a corporation, it means that those 20% of customers are sort of more important, if you like, than the average customer. And so that has developed the area of key account or strategic account management. So how, in fact, should the company go ahead and address and deal with these 20% of customers? And that's the whole field of key account or strategic account management. Now, initially that started maybe, say, 30 years ago, focused domestically. So in the US, for example, it was, who are the major customers for our goods and services in the US. Now it's become a global phenomenon, and there are now people who have the role title of global account manager. So, for example, the company has a customer around the world, And that customer says to the company, look, I do business with you in Britain, I do business with you in Mexico, I do business with you in South Africa, and that's fine. But that's a lot of different contracts I've got to make, maybe 20 different contracts. What I want to do is make one contract all around the world, which will operate in these different countries. And I want someone to talk to who can talk to about our relationship, not just in South Africa or in Mexico or in Guatemala, but all around the world. And so that whole field is one we call global account management. And there are a set of people, very senior people, called global account managers, who then have the job of managing that relationship with the customer all around the world. So that's a very big area in B2B, business to business marketing these days.
Okay. Well, now we're going to change a little bit of subject.
Sure.
How do you think that it's different, that we are different from the United States in a marketing position? How the things are different, how the things are done in United States different than Mexico, or what we're doing?
Well, that's a tough question for me, because I know more about the United States than I know about Mexico. But I think certainly Mexico has done extremely well in recent years. I don't go in to talk about NAFTA now and all the changes that may or may not occur with NAFTA. But certainly Mexico has developed some very strong industries and has very good external relationships with companies in the United States and elsewhere. What I also see as a similarity and not so much as a difference, and here I've worked with a set of marketing faculty from Monterrey, Tech Monterrey, Cesar Sepulveda and others, and we have developed a book which is about marketing for Latin American managers. One of the things we focus on in that book is a number of caselets about Mexican companies who are doing interesting things, many of which are entrepreneurial. So I think there's one of the things I think is similar is the tremendous amount of entrepreneurial activity that's going on in Mexico, some of which we capture in this book. So I don't think that's terribly different. I've just spent several weeks in Oaxaca, and one of the things I see there, and very interesting, one end of the industry, which is very strong in Oaxaca, is the restaurant industry. And I would think, and there they are doing what you're supposed to be doing in marketing. A lot of the restaurants there delivering high value at relatively inexpensive prices, and that's the way to be successful. Ultimately, you have to deliver value to customers, and certainly since I've been in Mexico, I see a lot of value delivered by companies, both by retail companies and other companies.
Well, taking advantage that you have been in two very prestigious universities in the United States, I have to ask you, do you see Tecnológico de Monterrey doing good things in an approach to showing the path to those big universities in the United States?
Well, certainly the Tec de Monterrey has a major reputation in the United States. I mean, the way people talk about Tec de Monterrey is it's the MIT of Latin America. So in terms of branding, whatever it is that Tec Monterrey is doing, they're doing a very good job of building a very strong brand. And what I see in Tec de Monterrey, although it's a non-profit institution, it's acting very much in a very strong business way, with significant expansion over the years, not just from Monterrey. I think they're getting on for now 30 campuses, managed regionally. In fact, here we are in Puebla, I think in the southern region. Southern region. I've done, as I said, done work with the people in Monterrey, in Monterrey with this book. I know Tech Monterrey is still doing a lot of work on MOOCs with Coursera to get the ideas out throughout Latin America. And actually I'm in the process of trying to work an arrangement to do a MOOC on strategic account management that we just talked about, where Tech Monterrey will be the sponsor. So I see Tech as being extremely positive, doing a lot of very interesting things.
Okay, well, last but not least, like an obligated question, I would like you to tell us what is the one thing that you like the most about being in Mexico.
So this time we were in Oaxaca. We've been in Oaxaca for a month, living in a nice little hotel right off the Zocalo. We found people just extremely friendly. We found the activity in Oaxaca. It's not a big city, but the activity certainly in the old area where we stayed around the Zocalo, a lot of stuff going on, and we just very much enjoyed it.
Well, I hope that your visit here in Mexico it's pleasant, and I thank you for this interview.
Okay, thank you very much, Boris.
Thank you.